Please listen carefully.
Okay, well, knowing that I was going to do my second video today, I thought I would do a quick thumbnail warm-up sketch. The problem with that is it turned into more like a hand nail because I kind of did a bigger version that I wanted. And then as I kept doodling, it came out to where I thought, man, I really wanted to keep this, but I didn't want to use this piece of paper. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my hand nail. Okay, so like pretty much everybody else, I'm going to loosely just start with the head and just loosely put some energy on the paper, just some quick lines, just to kind of put a foundation for me. Spider-Man is one of my favorite heroes of all time. I remember watching Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I couldn't wait to come home from school and see the next episode. The one with Captain America was one of my favorites, as well as the one where the X-Men's fighting the Juggernaut. I mean, I just loved Spider-Man back then. I think I've seen every variations of Spider-Man cartoons that ever came out. The 90s Spider-Man was great as well. Spider-Man, the animated series. But I remember the first time I ever saw Spider-Man was on the Electric Power Company. And man, I was just like, who is that? And then when the 70s show came out, I thought, man, that is so cool. Like, here's this guy in this crazy cool costume climbing walls. And I was just captured by it. Well, okay, so back to my drawing. So the thing with Spider-Man is everybody's got their way of drawing Spider-Man. Todd McFarlane probably made Spider-Man famous with the big eyes. I think Mark Bagley continues to do it that way. Me, I'm a fan of keeping his eyes small, right? Kind of reminiscent of that 70s Spider-Man TV show. I like to keep it where he's kind of intimidating, in terms of the way he looks. I want to keep him thin. He's not like the other superheroes, and that's probably what makes him great. So anyways, what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to draw at the angle of what I think where his eyes and face and his nose is going to be. And Spider-Man, typically he's an easy guy to draw because you can just make an oval and just draw in some webs. But if you want to make him super cool, you got to find a way to show some expression behind that mask. The key to it is not drawing Spider-Man face on, face forward, So I always like to try and draw him in different poses to where he's either looking up, looking down, looking sideways, something, so that that there's a head underneath that mask. Some people like to draw the webs different ways as well. Sometimes it's too much webbing for my taste. I just like the classic look, man. I mean, Spider-Man's got such an iconic costume, and everybody tends to try to make it unique to, or at least leave their own touch to it. Me, I just want to leave it classic. Okay, so now that I'm ready to do his weapon, I usually connect the two eyes with a small circle right in the middle, okay? And that, just always think in circles when you're gonna do his weapons. So I'll draw a line to kind of show like where his nose is going to be and how the webs conform to the shape of his face. If you want to give Spider-Man a realistic look, use the web lines to shape around his face, all right? Now, as for the actual webs, again, I draw circles. I'll start with the small circles, expand it out to the next circle, make it bigger, and conform it around the shape of his head. And I'll do that throughout his entire body. I'll draw the circles. I won't draw the actual webbing yet, but I'll use the circles as kind of like the guidelines for my webbing. Now on this drawing, I think I'm going to try and do it with watercolor. But I'm going to keep the colors just black, just black and gray, just keeping it simple. And the thing with watercolor, it's really hard to control. But that's the good and the bad about it. And now that I got most of the underlying webbing of, or at least the pattern that I'm going to use, it's about that time. It's about the time for the Peter Tingle.
Do not start calling it my Peter Tingle.
What did you guys think about the Spider-Man movie? Me, I loved it. I mean, Tom Holland does a great Spider-Man. You know, I like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man as well. I thought that those movies were great, except for, of course, the one with Venom and Sandman where he's dancing. I don't know about that one. I don't know whose bright idea it was, or who thought that was cool, but man, come on, guys, really? And then when they came out with the Amazing Spider-Man, you know, I like those movies as well. It's just weird how movie companies, they tend to want to just do reboots if it's not, for some reason, hitting the numbers or the huge numbers of the competitor. And I think at that time, Batman had just came out. And hey, I mean, Batman and Batman Begins, I mean, those are great movies. And they're two different characters, two different types of storylines that the movies were putting out. And I really don't think that they should have compared. But hey, I'm glad they went with Tom Holland. It was a great choice. I thought it was one of the coolest scenes ever when Spidey showed up in Captain America Civil War. This last movie I thought was fantastic. Speaking of Tom Holland and Far From Home, who do you guys think is Spider-Man's greatest villain of all time? I know usually the top 10 list ends with either Doc Ock or the Green Goblin. But I'm probably going to say the Green Goblin's his greatest villain. However, I really don't want to see him in the next Spider-Man movie. I don't want to see Doc Ock either. I mean, Spider-Man's got one of the greatest gallery of villains, and I'd really like them to bring out some new characters. I mean, I'd love to see Scorpion on the big screen, and I'd love to see Kraven on the big screen. Shoot, I'd be down to see Carnage. I mean, that'd be great. Just something different, man. I mean, like, I like the Green Goblin, but again, he's kind of played out. You know, he's been in like 2 or 3 Spider-Mans already. It's time for somebody else to shine. Now, as far as the rest of the webs on Spidey's suit, just again, use the web lines and conform it around kind of what you think his body's gonna shape like. Because again, you want to give Spidey that realistic look, and that's the thing for me. Like whenever I draw a character, the character kind of dictates how I draw things. You know, for Spider-Man, because he's so relatable, he's the average guy. I try to use more curves and less sharp lines. Whereas like when I draw Batman, I have a lot of angular lines. He really doesn't speak to me in those terms. And with Batman, again, I only see Jim Lee's art. With Spider-Man, I see to where you got to draw it as if there's a guy underneath it and he's your average guy. So I tend to keep it really loose and curvy. Now, again, as far as the webbing, just follow the circles, loop it around. And drawing the webs is probably like the worst unfun part of drawing Spider-Man, because you want to take your time. If you go too fast, you know, you won't connect the webbing to each line, and it just doesn't look right. And here's the thing with working with watercolor, you know, just one, accept that you may not stay within the lines. 2, you want to work from lighter tones to darker tones. Okay, me, I'm just gonna like essentially pat the areas where I want the watercolor to be on, and sometimes I'll just dip it onto the paper just to kind of get some of that water off of it. But again, work from lighter tones to darker tones. Now after this, I'm going to be ready to throw on some splatter effect, of course. Let me grab my whiteout pen. I'll just put a couple of splatter here, a couple of splatter there, just to kind of give it that energy look, as if the Peter Tingle is all around him, and it's just an energy type of Peter Tingle. By the way, if you haven't seen Spider-Man Far From Home, then you're not going to get what the Peter tingle is. Okay. Now I'm probably going to throw in some black speckles as well. So I'll grab my black ink, I'll dip it in, and I'll put it on the edge of this card and just flick it around. Just make it a little bit, just giving it a different contrast, just giving it a different look, because that's the thing with art, you guys. You know, if it looks cool, go for it.